wise women and men from every faith tradition teach that gratitude is at the heart of a spiritual life because it leads us to all the rest. Consider the simplest practice of gratitude, saying grace before a meal. The simplest moment of attention is enough to wake us up to the world. That moment of saying grace helps us look at the meal with a kind of reverence. Where did this all come from? This food, this water. So then we remember the rain and the sun and the soil. We remember the invisible makers of this meal. Even this fleeting prayer of thankfulness for our daily bread reminds us how fragile and dependent our bodies are, how everything hinges on everything else. So wrote Kathleen McTeague in her book of meditations, Shine and Shadow. Gratitude is at the heart of a spiritual life because it leads us to all the rest. This rest that she mentions is the opening of our minds and our eyes to the wonders of the universe, the opening of our consciousness to the interconnectedness and the interdependence of all existence, and the opening of our hearts to work to sustain the earth and for justice and peace, and to ensure all those unseen hands are sharing in the abundance of our country. All this starts when we take gratitude seriously. So gratitude is an emotion. It is the felt sense of happiness and wonder and joy about life. From this happiness and wonder and joy comes our desire to engage in the act of giving thanks. Giving thanks is an act, emotion. Gratitude is an emotion. When we express gratitude for something, and then also when we receive gratitude for something that we did, our brain releases dopamine and serotonin, the two critical neurotransmitters responsible for our emotions. That makes us feel good and triggers a kind of exclamation in our soul that we name gratitude. But getting to that point is complicated. Now, while most people are born with the capacity for gratitude, feeling and expressing it does not necessarily come easily to many people. As a matter of fact, probably to even most people. Let's start with that phrase, thank you. That verbal act of expressing appreciation for a kindness or a good fortune. It's a simple two-word expression, but it's not something that automatically rolls off our tongues once we have learned rudimentary speech, like it seems the words, I want, gimme, and mine do. We need to be taught when and why to say thank you. But even when a child learns to say thank you at the appropriate time, they probably don't know or don't truly understand the feeling of gratitude. Being able to recognize and name and feel genuine gratitude actually develops as we age and mature. It happens for most people when they've had the opportunity to experience living, experience moving out of the protective bubble of childhood, and experience things like hard knocks and troubled times, and then experience someone doing something nice for them, unbidden, or lending them a hand when they're in need, or supporting them in times of crisis or struggle. It comes when we are mature enough to understand the feeling of gratitude when we look at the universe and experience the universe. When we're able to look up at the starry sky and say, "Oh my God," or "Wow," and feel something deep for the beauty around us. There's also another reason that expressing gratitude is difficult for people. Unfortunately, aspects of our society often make it difficult for people to try to live with an ethic of gratitude. Our current gotcha mentality, the rampant liberal versus conservative mentality or mindset, the efforts of politicians and television opinion program hosts to tear down people who have opposing ideas, the seemingly meaningless violence going on in our cities and in our countryside, the increase in overt bigotry reported in the media and that I know almost all of us have heard and experienced in our everyday encounters, the in-your-face behavior we see all around us, and the current public petty complaining or nitpicking behavior of some people against other people. I recently saw a Facebook post. Someone was making some sort of comment about Death Star and comparing it to our current political situation. I don't even remember what the comment is. But the response, it was also paired with a picture of the emperor, of the galactic emperor, at some point in his history. And the response was not about the comment of the galactic of the Death Star, but rather that reference to the Death Star and that picture didn't match. My comment is, shh, good grief. But that's what's happening, and that's how we seem to be getting. This current negativity, this current nitpicking, this current violence that we are having, I think, has brought us into a culture of negativity and tension and looking for the bad in our surrounding and away from focusing on blessings and living grace, living gratitude. And unfortunately, it's easy to fall into this negative mindset. I know I find myself slipping into it. But we can counter this insidious and destructive environment and help our own mental and emotional and spiritual well-being by intentionally living gratitude. Living gratitude is regularly thinking about the good things around us and the gifts people and the universe give us. In other words, counting our blessings more often than just on Thanksgiving Day. And the second part of that is freely expressing our appreciation to both people and the universe for things both big and small that have happened to us. The wonderful things, big and small, that have happened to us. It is well documented that there are many physical, emotional, and social well-being benefits to living with an attitude of gratitude, such as greater optimism and happiness, improved feelings of connection, increased self-esteem, decreased blood pressure, expanded capacity for forgiveness, decrease in stress and anxiety and even depression, and heightened spirituality. These things happen because living with gratitude enables us to focus our attention on the good things in our lives and not stoke tension and distress, concentrating on the bad. Now, that does not mean that we are to ignore bad things that are going on in the world or try to live a Pollyannish life. Rather, it does mean that we look at what is working instead of what is not working. We look at who we love rather than who we do not love. And we pay attention to the gifts of nature, the food, the rain, the sunlight, and even the snow. They all have their part in all of existence, and they are gifts to us. Living an attitude of gratitude keeps us focused on what is really important in our lives, our values, our families, our friendships, our work to make things better for other people. Thinking about these things leads us in turn to the recognition that our lives and the lives of others are indeed precious and sacred and holy and should be held in our hearts with deep and constant appreciation and thanksgiving. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that the tensions in our culture at this time make it difficult to think about and live gratitude. So if it's not our usual practice, which I believe for most of us is probably not our usual practice to take time to name gratitude, I have a suggestion. I recently read an article that suggests we practice living gratefully using a grateful meditation every day, just a couple minutes. Here's how it goes. So let's try it. So get into a comfortable position, or at least as comfortable as those pews allow us to get into. And relax. Close your eyes if that will help. You don't need to. Take a few deep breaths now to relax the mind and the body. Now think about one thing that you're really grateful for. Just one. Take whatever comes to your mind. It doesn't matter. Take whatever comes to your mind. Now take a moment to build upon that thought, expanding this experience with the memory of recalling where you were or what happened to you. Savor this experience. Live with it now for a moment. Now just store it. And at another time, perhaps the first thing in the morning or just before you crawl under the sheets at night, take a moment to have this grateful meditation about that day or about your life. Build a repertoire of things to be grateful for. Start living gratitude. Oh, then, of course, freely express thanks and appreciation when something is done to you or when you see something of beauty around you. Gratitude is at the heart of spiritual life because it leads us to all the rest. Cultivating thankfulness for being part of life blossoms into a feeling of being blessed, and it creates further joy. Gratitude can soften a heart that has grown too hard or too guarded. Expressing gratitude, even to ourselves, for the good and perhaps even for the challenging things that have happened in our lives, create a pathway in our mind to develop a deeper sense of the spiritual. So as we enter into this joyful time of the year with Thanksgiving and Hanukkah and Christmas and New Year's, perhaps we can contemplate on an approach to living that minister and author Frederick Buechner suggests to us. He asks that we consider that in the entire history of the universe, let alone in our own history, there has never been another day just like today, and there will never be another one like it again. Today is the point to which all of our yesterdays have been leading, and which all of our tomorrows will proceed until the hour of our death. If you were aware of how precious today is, you could hardly live through it. Unless you are aware of how precious it is and how much you have to be grateful for, you can hardly say that you are living at all. Gratitude practiced in this manner brings delight, balances out our tendency to focus on the negative, and opens our heart to that which is greater than us, to let in love, to let in care, to let in appreciation for life, and most importantly, to let in joy. So be it.